Hey everybody, I'm Joey and today we're here in Kansas City, Missouri to learn all about brisket and that local favorite, burnt ends. So follow me and let's meet America. Today we're here in Kansas City to meet Chef Rob Magee, who is changing the barbecue game. Rob is a classically trained chef who became obsessed with mastering the art of Kansas City barbecue and has since won numerous awards and accolades from some of the biggest names in the business. Rob parlayed his culinary training and passion for barbecue when he opened up the area's first from-scratch kitchen, which focused on a hybrid of wood-fired grilling and fresh award-winning barbecue. Now it's time to turn up the heat and cook some meat here at the Q39.
Been here many times. We come on my birthday and Mother's Day. I just love it.
Best barbecue sandwich I've had probably in my lifetime.
All right, let's get into it.
Okay, really important. Always cut where the fat is. Don't cut where the meat is. This one's about 13 pounds.
Okay.
But by the time we're done, it's gonna be about 9 pounds. We're gonna take that much fat off of it.
Woo, that's a lot.
You bet. So this side, as we showed that beautiful marbling here, what you're gonna do is you're gonna take off all of that fat. Now the reason why is when we go ahead and season it, we want to make sure it can penetrate in the meat. Now, if you put seasoning on the fat, it's never going to go on the meat. So why even season it?
Absolutely.
Right? So we're going to go ahead and take all of this off. Okay, so what I'm doing now is this is the point, right? Look at that marbling. Oh my gosh, all of a sudden you're going to see a ton of it.
And this is where we get the burnt ends from again, right?
That's exactly right. This is what Kansas City is known for. We like to take all that fat off and cube it up, and we make burnt ends out of it. And boy, are those delicious. Wait until we try those.
So do we leave more fat on the brisket down here on the flat than we do on the point?
We do. I like the point. Since there's so much marbling, we take it all off. So when we smoke it and put the rub on it, we don't have to take anything off for our customer, and it's just pure goodness. So the flavor of the smoke and the rub really comes through. When it comes down to the flat of it, that's where it's nice and lean, so you want to protect it. We want to keep it as moist as possible. You know, we have a saying in the kitchen, you can always add back flavor, but you can never add back moisture. Do you see how thick it is? What you do is you feel it. So as you feel it, you know how much you want to cut off of it to get it to 1/4 of an inch. This does take time to figure that out, but you don't want to expose the meat.
What happens if we expose the meat?
You know what? You just don't do it again. Keep going. Beautiful. You got a beautiful brisket here. We took off as much fat as we could. We protected the flat, and this is where it shows the difference. The flat is from here over.
Right.
The point is from here down, which is right here, all up on top. And when we put it in the smoker, we're gonna cook it to where the point is up. By putting the point up, the fat on top of the flat is gonna be protected by the fat. It's gonna melt down and keep coating it so it doesn't get dried out. If we cook it this way, it'll be a lot of dry heat. The fat underneath it would just disappear,
right,
instead of protecting the meat.
So the age-old question, fat cap up, fat cap down, you say
fat cap up.
All right. Now we're dealing with two different muscle groups here between the point and the flat. So do we see that the grain runs differently when we hit different muscle groups?
Absolutely, but what I'm gonna show you is how to separate it so we will treat each part of that meat differently.
All right, guys, chef's gonna put me to work here.
Okay, so it's time to season the brisket. Super important. What we're gonna do is we're gonna take some of my Q39 brisket seasoning. What's important in that rub is to make sure it's unique, that's something you like. The other thing is what we do really well here is we layer it with flavors. The rub has to complement the type of meat plus the sauce. So this brisket rub works great for Q39. You gotta be careful though. Some rubs and some sauces don't match. You may do a great job on brisket and you're wondering, what am I eating? Well, guess what? I got an easy solution. Use Q39 rub and Q39 sauce.
Right, now so for people at home that don't have access to your rub, what would you suggest as a simple, basic seasoning?
You know what? If you go to Texas, a simple seasoning is salt and black pepper.
Okay.
You can always start off with salt and black pepper, fresh cracked pepper to get started. You're gonna put 3/4 of a cup to a max of a cup of brisket rub and thoroughly cover that brisket. So now it's time, let's have fun.
All right.
Now remember, if you go outside the pan, you're cleaning it.
I don't want to do that.
And look at that, we got ribs wrapped, getting ready for lunch. And we're gonna take this and put it right into this smoker.
Chef, I'm having a spiritual moment right now. That looks fantastic. What do you run this pit at?
You know, we run it about 225 to 235 degrees, okay? If your pit for a restaurant is filled with meat, you're gonna bring up the temperature a little bit more because the cavity, the inside, is so large, it's gonna have so much moisture. To put a bark on it, you gotta bring up the temperature just a little bit. We only use hickory for anything that's cooked into the smoker. Because the cavity is so large of a smoker, we wanna use a really strong wood. So things such as hickory, mesquite, you can use in these large smokers. Now in our grill that we're gonna finish off, we use oak.
Okay.
So everything is finished off on an oak grill. So that, we're gonna teach you some more secrets so you have the best brisket at home. We're gonna let this go for about 5 hours, then we're gonna take it out, and then we're gonna wrap it, and then within an hour and a half, it's gonna be done. You know what? A lot of restaurants cook real slow. You gotta be careful when you do that because it can dry out your meat. If you're really good at it, you can do a good job at it. But if you wrap it, you're gonna retain more moisture than if you don't wrap it in dry heat.
All the briskets that the customers are eating, are they cooked the same day?
You know, they are. We cook briskets twice a day. We have briskets coming out by 9:30 to 10:30 just for lunchtime. Piping hot, ready to go. We let it cool it down for 1 hour. Then what we do is we go ahead and slice it to order for the customer.
Wow.
We only like to serve the freshest briskets. We go through 350,000 pounds of brisket per restaurant. We have 2 of them.
All right, Rob, so it's been about 5 hours. What do we do now?
All right, it's time to take out that brisket. And what we do here at Q39 is we wrap it up. You can always add back flavor, but never moisture. So when you wrap it up, it's like a braising technique. So it takes a secondary cut of meat by the time you finish it to make it nice and moist. And we'll talk about finishing it at the end. So let's go ahead and take it out.
Beautiful. Oh, take a look at that.
There you go, nice smoke coming out.
That's phenomenal.
We're gonna take that brisket we put in there and we're gonna go ahead and wrap it.
So when you're pulling it out, are you pulling it out at a certain internal temperature or is it always to time?
You know, you wanna bring it up to about 165 degrees before you wrap it up. Now the other way you can tell is about the color. If the color looks great, okay, and it's got a good bark, then it's time to wrap it.
Well, that looks phenomenal.
If you're only cooking it at 225 to 235 degrees, it's gonna take 5 hours before it goes. You can also bring it up a little bit higher if you like a really dark bark to it. So you can bring it up to 175 before you wrap it. Still acceptable. It may be your cup of tea, and that's the way you do it at home. As we talked about it, we use hickory in here. Now I'm gonna tell everybody and all your viewers out there, make sure you're careful. A lot of smoke doesn't make great barbecue. A lot of smoke makes it bitter. So what you wanna do is you wanna have a light smoke coming out. So as you put wood in your smoker and it's cooking, if all of a sudden you see all this white stuff coming out of the top, that means you have way too much smoke in there. So it's okay when it's a light smoke that comes out, that means you're cooking just perfect to have the best barbecue. So now we're gonna go ahead and wrap it. So when we take it out, what you do is you use foil. This is a great trick at home. It also keeps your table clean. All right, you're gonna use 2 sheets of foil. The reason why you use 2 sheets is when you wrap it up and put it back in your smoker, you don't wanna pop a hole in it. When you do that, you take away the braising technique. So all the moisture comes out, the liquid, and then you're really dry heating inside even though it's wrapped. It will work, but it's gonna take forever to get it done.
Understood, and nobody's gonna like dry brisket.
Nobody likes dry brisket. See how I'm making a nice crease? So I actually want to cook, it's almost like a pressure cooker by the time I'm done. Make it nice and tight. Now, Before we finish the other side, what I'm gonna do is put a little bit of our smoked au jus.
That sounds phenomenal.
So every time you cook a brisket, when you have liquid left over, don't throw it away, save it. All right, we just put a little bit in, that's all you need. Put that right in here. And off it goes. So we're looking for about an hour, hour and a half. Then we're gonna test our brisket. It should be anywhere between 199 to 202. All cows are not created equal, so you gotta check it. So that's what Pitmaster's all about. When you put a thermometer in and it comes out nice and easy, it's ready to go. Be careful though, you can be fooled. Do not put the thermometer in where there's a lot of fat or the fat cap because it's gonna come out easy anyway. So you gotta make sure you check it in 2 or 3 areas. But don't keep poking it. When you keep poking it, all the moisture comes out and it dries out the meat.
Now, will different grades of beef, different, choice, prime, select, will they have different feels as they cook? Or is it pretty much the same effect? Or does that intermuscular fat make any difference to the feel of a done brisket?
It does. If you go ahead and use a Wagyu or a prime, if it has more marbling in it, it just comes out a little bit easier. So you gotta be really careful.
Okay. Join us for the Meat America podcast presented by Code 3 Spices as we meet experts and discuss incredible stories, business and life advice, meat, of course, and much, much more. Like a bunch of friends gathered around the grill, the meat brings us together, but the conversation will head in exciting directions. Are you ready for an adventure? Follow along every week as we meet America.
All right, so here we have the brisket all wrapped up.
And how long has that been in there wrapped, Chef?
Total for 6.5 to 7 hours, and it's ready to go. 2 ways you check. You check it with the thermometer, but you're also gonna check it in the feel. So when you feel it, like this one, feels great. So it's nice and soft up here.
I feel that,
So you know it's ready. So we're gonna take this out. Woo, and it is cooked perfect. We're gonna take that.
And I just wanna hold this up for everyone at home. Take a look at that, fresh out of the smoker. All right, Chef, what's next now?
So we're gonna take this brisket and we're gonna put some of our classic barbecue sauce on it. So when it's wrapped up and it creates a lot of steam, it will take away some of that rub and flavor.
Which is right here in our au jus, right?
And we're gonna still put it back in it.
Very nice.
To add it back, what I use is my rib rub. My rib rub has half the amount of salt as our brisket rub, so that way it doesn't make it too salty.
Right on.
Then we're gonna flip it over.
That's a great tip.
Okay, so you'll see where the au jus it sat in, it changed a little color, right? Well, it's easy to fix that. So we're gonna put some barbecue sauce on it. And now we're gonna put that back in the smoker. It will not take that long because the brisket is so hot, it's gonna tighten up right away. But go ahead and put it back in so it adheres to the meat. Now we're gonna take it out and we're gonna rest it. This is where a lot of people make a lot of mistakes on brisket. They may do a wonderful job right up to the last 45 minutes, and then they don't treat it right and it gets dry. So if you do this right, then we're gonna go ahead and put that on a rack. Rack's super important. When it cools down, you wanna make sure that that brisket sits on a rack, and we wanna let it rest for 45 minutes. Don't get too eager to jump into your brisket. Give it 45 minutes. You know it's cooked right. What happens is the juices in the center will go back out into the meat. Now, if you don't use this rack and you put it on a sheet pan, what happens is the brisket cools down on the bottom and the juices runs out where it's nice and cool.
That's no bueno.
No good. If you got a pile of juices and you're ready to slice your brisket, we know you forgot the rack.
So how long has this been resting for now?
You know, we got 45 minutes on this, and it is, oh my God, does it smell good, right?
Fantastic.
Look how good it looks. So we're gonna finish it off, and we're gonna show you some tricks of the trade that Q39 does that you can use at home.
Check it
We're
out.
gonna take this, and we're gonna separate it, okay? Where I showed you earlier, right here.
I see it.
Look at that.
I can see
All
it
the
very
way down.
clearly. Yep.
Now, one of the things you can do is you can actually take your finger and start cutting it if you need to, or if you've been doing it a long time like me, you cut down. Okay, look, then it starts going down. What you do is you pull this up a little bit.
And this looks absolutely tremendous, Chef.
You're successful when there's fat on the flat and fat on your point still. Then what we're gonna do is go ahead and take all that fat off. So let's keep going.
Let's see it.
So you see all that fat? Just take a little bit off at a time. There's no reason to be in a rush. Remember, your guests are ready to eat some real goodness. And that's what this is all about. We're gonna take that, start cutting into it, okay? Still a lot of fat. Take off a little bit more. Oh my gosh, look at that, perfect. And if you don't take enough fat off of your brisket, they're gonna say you got fatty burnt ends. That's Kansas City, so you wanna take that off. What we do differently at Q39 than most barbecue restaurants, a lot of restaurants will take this and put it back in the smoker for 4 or 5 hours.
Really?
The only problem is, what are you doing with all that juice?
Going away, yep.
Right? So while it adds more smoke and flavor to it, you're drying out the meat.
So we got it trimmed. What do we do now?
Now what we're gonna do is we're gonna season the inside and finish it off on our grill. Now we use oak wood for that, and we finish off a lot of our barbecue on the grill. Why? It makes it a char flavor and adheres all that sauces and rubs to it, so it makes it like powerful while you're eating it. So we're just gonna put a little salt, pepper. And why do we do that? Well, I don't know about you, but the inside of that brisket didn't get seasoned. Why aren't we seasoning it?
Now we're headed to the grill?
You betcha.
Let's check it out.
We're gonna put it right on the hottest part of the flame. Look at that sear.
So how long do you leave that point grill for?
You know, that's a great question. A lot of people get all anxious and have to move it right away. But what happens is if you do that, it's gonna stick to the grill and you're gonna take away all that char flavor. If you're a little nervous and you wanna check it out and you wanna make sure it's not burning, you can always do the sneak a peek. So check it out. See how it, like char mark, like a steak flavor. So now I'm gonna turn it and we're gonna cook it a little bit more.
Beautiful.
Now that we put that char on, just like a steak, if you have good char, it tastes delicious. But you don't want to char the other side of your point because you don't want to burn your barbecue sauce and all that rub. Because that is delicious. Now, if you have to cut it super paper thin, that must mean you're a little bit undercooking on your brisket. If it starts falling apart, you can always slice it a little thicker. Everybody likes tender brisket.
What do you recommend, about a 1/4 inch?
I think a 1/4 inch. This brisket's cooked perfect, so we're ready to go.
Beautiful.
So we got it sliced. Now, here it is. This is our point. Comes down, goes into a circle. You flip that over, you cut right here. Okay? This is the fun part about being at your house, what you can do with all this meat and impress everybody. Okay? So we take these burnt ends, okay? Flip that over, and we're gonna cube it. Oh my gosh, doesn't that look beautiful? Now, what we do is, remember that au jus? We put just a little bit on that brisket, add just a little bit of rib rub on top. So all we do is we drizzle just a fine drizzle of sauce, and then we are ready to eat.
That looks phenomenal.
That
I
is-
can't wait. Let's check it out.
Cheers.
Cheers.
How great is that?
You can feel the smokiness. You get the sauce, that additional seasoning. Very moist, as you said,
Char flavor.
and incredibly tender. You really knocked it out of the park.
Well, let's try some of that sliced brisket.
Do it. Just like we showed you when it was on the cutting board, you have that incredible smoke ring, some of that bark, and it is just fork tender.
Nice and tender, doesn't fall apart in your mouth. Filet de brisket.
As I said to Chef Rob earlier, this man's been practicing the dark arts because that is pure sorcery. I'm throwing in the towel on brisket. I can't do it any better than this.
Well, you know what? The viewers know how to do it the same way Q39 is. Don't forget to get your sauce and rub. We got you taken care of.
If you're ever in KC, you gotta come in and check out Q39. You'll be glad you did. The brisket, the burnt ends, the wings, just to name a few. I'm looking forward to getting to Manhattan to pair with this great, I mean, nothing goes better with barbecue for me than bourbon. I love it.
You know what? Manhattan's my favorite drink. Let's get to it.
Let's go. If you want to make Q39 brisket right from home, just follow these simple steps. First, a great tasting brisket begins with quality meat. Chef Rob only uses prime grade brisket. Next, remove the brisket from the packaging by opening it on the fatty side of the brisket. Trim the brisket on both sides and remove the entire fat cap from the point, and trim the flat portion, leaving a 1/4 inch of the fat cap. Season the brisket with 3/4 to 1 cup of Q39 brisket seasoning, or substitute with salt and pepper. Fire up the smoker using hickory wood and heat that pit to 225 to 235 degrees Fahrenheit. Place the brisket in the smoker, fat cap up. Smoke the brisket until it reaches an internal temperature of 165 degrees Fahrenheit, which takes approximately 5 hours. Now, remove the brisket and prepare to wrap with 2 sheets of aluminum foil to prevent leakage. Before you finish wrapping, add smoked au jus in the foil, or if this is your first cook, substitute with beef stock. Put the brisket back in the smoker for an additional 1 to 1.5 hours until it reaches an internal temperature of 198 to 202 degrees Fahrenheit. Remove the brisket from the foil and coat both sides with barbecue sauce and Q39 rib rub. You could substitute with a low salt rub of your choice. Once that's done, put the brisket back in the smoker for another 5 or 10 minutes to allow the sauce to adhere to the meat. Now, remove the brisket from the smoker and let it rest on a cooling rack for 45 minutes. Once cooled, separate the brisket flat from the point. Trim the remaining fat from the sliced portion of the point and use salt and pepper to season the brisket where that fat was trimmed. Sear fatty side of the point over a high heat on an oak-fired grill and rotate after a minute or 2, depending upon the heat of that fire. Flip the point with the bark side down over a lower heat portion of the grill. This side will caramelize quicker due to the sauce. Once that's done, go ahead and remove the point from the grill, cut into cubes, drizzle with sauce, and you're ready to eat. And now for today's tip to turn up the tasty. Using a foil wrap during smoking will result in faster cooked meats that tend to retain more moisture. Remember, you can always add back flavor, but you cannot add back moisture. We hope you enjoyed learning from Chef Rob today, and if you did, you know the drill. Go ahead and hit that big thumbs up like button, or even better, subscribe to our channel so you can follow our adventures as we meet America.